If you are trying to make any kind of meaningful, effective change in your life, you've come to the right place. Good day, ladies and gents. Welcome back to another episode of We're Talking Shift. Got stress? I think probably a lot of people do right now. Did you know consistent stress can take a massive toll on our mental, our physical, and our emotional health? And I don't think that anyone out there can deny that there are a lot of people, more than usual, experiencing a lot of it these days. We all have our own versions of it and ways of trying to manage it. It's one of the most common causes of anxiety, of heart disease, of high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, and more. Now, chronic stress can cause you to become cortisol resistant and weaken your immune system, making you a prime candidate for catching every cold and flu going around. Plus, stress ages you faster. I mean, ooh, who wants that? So I'm sure that you can guess what the topic du jour is today. My guest, Dr. Dravon James, is here to talk about and question some things about stress. Well, like, is it always a bad thing? Maybe there's a way to use it. Is it a result of perception? And of course, she's going to be sharing some easy and effective ways to turn it around. And let me tell you, from what I have discovered, Dr. Dravon James knows her stuff. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about her, and then we're going to bring her on. She is an inspirational speaker, a radio host, and author of Freedom is Your Birthright. She is the founder. Let me just hold that up real quick. This lovely little book full of wisdom nuggets. She's the founder of Everyday Peace, a platform for her to help and inspire others to build the life of their dreams. She also hosts her own weekly radio show, Everyday Peace, on Unity Radio. Dr. Dravon James, welcome to We're Talking Shift.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And this is an amazing topic. It's right on time. It's very timely.
Yeah, more than ever, right? I just don't think we can talk about it too much, honestly. And people really need help in every way they can right now to manage their emotional and mental stress. So I am delighted that you are going to spend a little bit of time with us today. Okay, first of all, I think I just I want to cover the fact that you're wearing a lot of hats. I mean, you are, I mean, we talked about it just a minute ago. You're a speaker, a radio host, an author, as I held up a few minutes ago, this wonderful little booklet, Freedom is Your Birthright. And I love it because it's not like a gigantic novel, which is good because, as you know, most people aren't doing a lot of reading. And if they are, they're not finishing things. So having something like a nice little tidy succinct message to get through is really a nice gem to have. But you are also, well, you have been an actress. I don't know if you still are, but I thought that was pretty cool that your career credits include a recurring role in HBO's critically acclaimed The Wire. That is pretty awesome. It has inspired me to go back and watch it again so I can find you on there.
Yeah. So that, and in addition to that, I am a doctor of pharmacy. That's what my doctorate degree is. So
Yes.
I run operations for a very large medical center, pharmacy operations. So
That's amazing. And that's where I was going next, which is just so you have this really interesting blend of all of these vast experiences. And I find the pharmacy aspect so interesting. I want to find out how that integrates with your spirituality and your beliefs about, mind and our health and all of those things. So we're going to get into that. I guess before we dive into that, I would love you to tell us a little bit about Everyday Peace and why you created that.
oh, that's a wonderful story that I never get tired of talking about. so,
Okay.
so at the very beginning, I have to tell you what the word peace, as we define it in everyday peace, how we define that word. Peace is wholeness, nothing missing, nothing broken, completeness, no totality. That's peace. So it isn't necessarily what people think about sitting somewhere cross-legged in a Zen-like state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we commonly think of that when we think about peace. Like, oh yes, that Zen likes, and that's so wonderful. It's wonderful to
Yeah.
have that. I would love to have that all of the time. But when we talk about everyday peace, we're talking about being whole, complete, nothing missing, nothing broken, totality, which means that those things that show up in our life, and we're talking about stress today, with those things that show up in our life that make us feel, or we choose to feel, we'll talk about that, stressed about, are
Mm-hmm.
also part of that everyday peace. It's,
Mm-hmm.
it's shown up for the journey. And so in everyday peace, we say that everything that's shown up in my life, the good, the bad, and the in between, absolutely everything has shown up for one reason. And that reason is to bow down and serve us as we consciously create and move towards our next level of greatness. Right. So if stress shows up, we got to use it. We have to use it.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that because I say that all the time. It's whether it's stress or something else that somebody is, perceiving as something that's bad for them, or, an event or an experience. And I always say, don't let it use you, use it. And then we go from there. And I feel like from everything that I have read about you and watched you, I feel like, Drayvon, you are in my head. I mean, we are very simpatico on our beliefs around this stuff. So I want you to take a second to explain to people like how, when they have an experience or a stressful situation going on, how do they, what do you mean by use it? I know what I mean, but I want to hear your
Yes.
version.
So, you know what? And I love to use real life examples of people that I work with, but
Mhm.
today I'm going to use myself. So you'll get to be in my head. So, my day up until this point has been extremely stressful. Meeting after meeting. Some of them, I wish they were all as friendly as this one, but some of them come with a little, acrimony in there, right? And so as I caught myself, because we're all human today,
Mhm.
starting to tense up and resist, because stress means that really at the base, let's start at the beginning. Stress is
Mhm.
fear of something, and it's not always bad, right? You could be
Right.
going to get having a wedding or having a baby. Your fear of the outcome causes you stress. Can I afford the dress? Can I afford this? Are we ready for the baby? All of these things can cause stress. So at the very root cause of this stress is fear. So I gotta start there, because we really can't talk about stress without talking
Mhm.
about fear and how our brain is wired. This stuff is just phenomenal. So the
Mhm.
brain, the most advanced piece of machinery on the earth, right? It's
Right.
still very primitive in some ways. In the way that it's very primitive is also very sweet. The brain wants to protect those people that it cares about,
Mhm.
you, your family, your friends. And so when something seems to threaten the brain, threaten your safety, the brain goes into this kind of stress mode. It either goes back to the past to help make decisions, or tries to block the future to prevent things from happening.
Mhm.
And it keeps us stuck in this perpetual wheel of fear. And we
Right.
just keep circling the wagon. So we've got to break out of that. And the first thing is to do is to become more self-aware.
Mhm.
Sometimes we are in the thick of it and we don't even know, because we can't slow down long enough to make an assessment of what's going on with us, right? Have
Right.
you been, you before you realize that you've flipped out, you've said the wrong thing, you've behaved poorly, and then you go back to, oh my gosh, I was so stressed and I didn't realize it. So I caution people all the time, be like the Matrix. Remember that movie, The Matrix, and how they would slow everything down?
Mhm.
Make that part of our every hour. Slow down. Take a quick internal check on what's going on with you. Are you clenching your jaw?
Mhm.
Are your hand? I was a clencher. Everything on me was
Me too.
always tight. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Right? Isn't that amazing? And that
Yeah.
started happening to me today, right? And so I'll tell you how I got out of that. But so just starting clenching, and you realize, oh, wait a minute, why am I holding my shoulders so tight? Well, we're
Mhm.
trying to protect ourselves. The brain is saying, create a barrier. And what do we try to do? We create it with our jaw, right? Right?
Yeah, it's
Our
true.
shoulders, right? We're
It's
trying to
so
block
true.
everything. Yeah. So we live in this space of trying to protect ourselves, protect our loved ones, and that's okay. Who wouldn't want to be there? But how we
Mhm.
do it, that's a primitive way of saying that I need to become fearful, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Tell you guys, we'll be talking for a little while, but there's so many
Yeah.
great ways. So one of the
Yeah.
first things you want to do is become self-aware. Become aware. Pay attention to what your body is doing, because we can lie with a smile, we can say we feel fine, but there's something that your body does, right? Like I said, I
Ex-
mentioned, I clench,
yeah.
I hold on tight for dear life.
Me too. No, I'm the exact same way. I can totally relate to that. There are some times I have waken up in the morning and my jaw is achy and I realize I've been clenching in my sleep. Or yeah, if something is up for me during the day and I'll like my jaws are aching. Oh, okay. I'm tense about something. So then I have the self-awareness to connect that the physical manifestation, to what's going on up here, so I can do some things to unwind that and bring myself back to, a state of harmony.
Right. And that's for most people, that's really they could stop there depending on where you're on the stress. But that
Mhm.
I call that shining the light of awareness,
Mhm.
because shadows can't exist when the light comes on. So once you say, oh, I'm aware that I'm clenching, all of a
Mhm.
sudden that mechanism says, oh, she's watching, she's paying attention to us. We're like the child in us wants
Mhm.
our attention, says, you've noticed me, right?
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
starts to soothe down a little bit, like, you've noticed that
Yeah.
something, and then it has this belief that you'll go further and you'll move towards resolution. Not that you'll know what the resolution is, but you'll want to make the actions to move towards resolution, which are so
Mhm.
much easier. We'll talk about that
Mhm.
too. So much
Mhm.
easier. We don't have
Right.
to have an answer in order to live in the place of peace.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like, that stress, to your point, it's this, you're in this place of resistance, right? And and sometimes you just don't even know it consciously. It's something that's beneath the surface. And you have to ask yourself, so you got to do like this internal interrogation of yourself, right? Sometimes to figure out what is it? I know I'm feeling stressed or I'm feeling cranky about something, or for whatever reason, you are just not feeling happy go lucky. So you've really got to come back in and interrogate yourself and get to the bottom of it and ask yourself some quality questions.
And I just want
But
to stay right there for just one
yeah.
second, because that is, how children ask you a question. You'll answer the question, they'll say, but why?
Mhm. Yeah.
But why?
Yes.
I have a teenager getting ready to go off to college, and he didn't like an answer that I gave today. And it was so funny because he did the but why with me. I gave him the answers, but why? And the next,
Hmm.
but why? And when we do that to ourselves, we get to the root
Yes.
cause. Well, I'm
Yeah.
angry about this. Well, why does that make you angry? Because of this. Why, so lovingly getting to the but why, and
Hmm.
the root cause of what is really the what has
Yeah.
this circumstance triggered in our life. And
Right, right. And that's so key, Drayvon, because so many people don't actually stop and ask themselves the questions. They go outside of themselves and they look for a way to find comfort. They look for a way to change the state with something outside of themselves rather than trying to get to the root cause of the state they find themselves in.
right.
And that's not always the best answer because it's just going to keep coming up, right? Until
Oh
you
yeah.
figure it out.
It's gonna be like that, like that little child. It's gonna keep coming back, and
Yeah.
this is the internal, the child in us wants our attention. We could try to placate it with all these other things, but it
Hmm.
always comes back to, I'm looking for you to notice you. That's what it is.
Oh, that's a good way to put it too.
Yeah.
There's like two U's.
Oh,
There's right?
yes.
There's like the I and then there's the I that is watching the I.
Oh, I could have said that, right? There's the watcher of self.
Right.
There's the watcher of self. And the more time we answer to that part of ourselves, right?
Hmm.
The more, these external situations just don't seem that big anymore, because they seem so big because we refuse to spend time with the inner self. We are so scared of that part of ourselves.
Yeah. And that's another why question. Like why? Why are we so resistant and afraid to dig into that?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's that's
That's
an I guess it's different for everyone, but
It's
that's the
different for everyone.
question.
But the real thing, I think, is that if we spend a little time, right, we're so externally focused. And one of the things I tell my clients is, I wish that our eyes pointed inwardly, right? So the fact that our eyes point out has been a disservice to us in so many ways, right?
Right. Right.
We believe that
Yeah.
everything that these eyes see outside of ourselves is where all of the answers are, where, someone always knows
Hmm.
better, and we're trained to, speak to the expert. And there's nothing wrong with that after we consult the inner self,
Mm,
right?
yeah, well said. Well said. So, okay. Um, when we are when we're in that state of resistance,
Mm.
when we see things, or we actually, it's more like we perceive things as negative or bad, and that right there is the caveat, right? The
Yeah.
perception. um, we create stress for ourselves. Usually it's completely unnecessary, but that perception is such a big part of the stress that we manifest, right? Because that perception of whatever the situation or the person or the experience is, you're applying like a certain meaning to that. And so then you manifest these emotions, and stress, is one of them. So how, I guess maybe just to dive into this, how does how does the act of resisting stress create more tension? And maybe we can just expand on that concept a little bit, and how they can help people reframe that a little bit.
Oh, great question. Because what we focus on, we draw more into our life. That's the short answer, but I want to just stay there
Hmm.
for a little bit. So,
Hmm.
it takes energy to resist something, right? We've got to
Yeah.
make up our mind that we're, I'm going to resist this. And then we put all of our energy and all of our focus on resisting this thing, whatever the thing is. And we
Hmm.
only create an energetic pull from the universe that says, this is the thing that I'm focused on. Well,
Hmm.
the universe says you're focused on it. I'll bring more of that to you, right? So
Yeah.
that happens, and we all know that. But there is part of us that says, well, this thing has shown up in our life, and you're spot on when you said we tell ourselves a story about that thing, right? We say, okay, this is bad. We go right into judgment, right?
Right.
Right into judgment. So if I could just really work with people and get you to first understand it's okay to be aware that you don't like something, that,
Hmm.
I don't like the way this is happening in my life. That is awareness is key to changing something in our life, right?
Right.
So what is the story? I don't like it. You have a right to not like it. Honor yourself for being aware that you don't like whatever this is that showed up in your life, and that
Hmm.
you like something else to show up in your life, right? But don't get in the place of judging. I don't like it, right?
Right.
Now it's shown up, and since it's here, right? Going back to the foundational principle of everyday peace, since it's here, since it's shown up in my life, I know that it's shown up for one reason, and that is to bow down and serve me. Who doesn't want to be served? To bow
Hmm.
down and serve me as I consciously create my next level of greatness. I have to consciously choose to tell myself what this thing, whatever it is, what the meaning that it has in my life.
Hmm.
Do that. And that is that it's going to serve me. I don't know how. I don't know how, right? And I
Right.
don't like it, but I know that it's going to serve me. Just
Mhm.
that little bit right there. And then saying, I'm curious. I'm curious about how this is going to work out for my growth and development.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such an important piece of that, is to, even if you don't know what it might be, but to be open and to be curious and to be willing to receive an inspiration that can be helpful in moving you forward, or helpful in your growth, helpful in your understanding.
Yeah.
That's the piece right there. Even if you don't know, to be willing to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to receive something that's for my benefit.
Right. And that's the difference, that I call that leaning into the situation,
Mhm.
right? Instead of bracing up and clenching away from it, right? And
Yeah.
creating this barrier, and this thing, starts coming towards you faster. You lean in with this curiosity,
Mhm.
you know, gosh, I wouldn't have chosen this, but I'm really curious about how this is going to work out for my growth and development, because it only can do that. That's what challenges do, if
Yeah.
we let them. Or we could take the worry approach and say, oh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I'm not going to come back from this. And that creates all this cortisol and all this worry energy,
Mhm.
and it blocks our creativity, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when the problem shows up, the answer
Right.
shows up with it,
Yes.
always.
always. But I think, or and to your point, and I think though, you've got to allow your mind to get out of the same space where the problem lives, right? So yeah, the solution is there, but you are not going to be able to be receptive to it if you are still milling around in the angsty space of this is awful,
Right.
right?
Or
Right.
in that space that we always get trapped in. I want things to be as they were. We hear a lot of that
Yeah.
right now.
Oh
When
yeah.
things go back to normal,
Mhm.
that keeps you trapped, right?
Right.
So you're not willing to advance. You're not becoming curious about what this situation is going to bring us to, right?
Mhm.
It keeps you,
Mhm.
that puts up that wall of resistance,
Yeah.
creates more stress because instead of becoming curious and having that creative energy start to spark and grow in you where you can vibrate energetically at the level of the answer, you're
Mhm.
now trying to vibrate at the past.
Right.
Stress.
Right.
On my whiteboard at work, people come to my office and I have this definition of chaos is trying to exist in more than one space and time at the same time, right? The
Mm.
past, the future, and
Right.
you can't do that. Just right here. Just right here. I'm
Yeah.
curious today.
Mhm. I love that. That's perfect. That's so interesting about chaos, about looking at it that way, kind of
Yeah.
multidimensional.
Yeah.
Not a good place to live though.
Ooh, not a good and you talking about stress. You're trying to
Right?
figure out a situation for today, and your mind is trying to drag you to the past to recreate yesterday.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
impossible. Or you've put up these barriers and you're so afraid of tomorrow. It's just, uh,
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a good cycle to be in.
not
And
at all.
and I'm glad you mentioned about particularly now since everyone's lives have been fairly disrupted, pretty much everyone, in one way, shape, or form, and to one degree or another. Um, there is that, oh, when are things going to go back? When are we going to get to go back to to what it was, or to normal, whatever that is for each individual. And it seems like, again, when you have that mindset of wanting to go back, you lose the opportunity for something new, something different, something that might be better than you couldn't even have imagined before, because you're so afraid to loosen your grip on what was,
Yeah.
and look toward what good might come of this. Ah.
We're stuck in that loss aversion, which says
Mhm.
that I would rather not lose
Mhm.
than take a chance on gaining.
Right.
Right? So loss aversion. So we'd rather not lose whatever we knew from the past, and
Mhm.
what we could gain. Here's the thing. Another term I love: circle of influence, circle of control.
Mhm.
This train is moving forward, whether you like it or not.
Mhm.
Right?
That's so true.
Yeah. And so why not? Why not say, my goodness, let me get curious about how this, whatever this is going to look like, and how it's going to be great for my growth and development, how it's going to open up new
Mhm.
opportunities for me. I've never
Yeah.
seen it before, and I'm excited to find out what's going to happen.
Mhm. That's this is, I feel like, what you just said a moment ago about the aversion to loss,
Yeah.
and not being willing to take the risk of what might come. That's like a great point to share your going rogue story, I think, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, do you have one to share with us?
Well, I would have to say my going rogue story is still going rogue, but
Nice.
many, many years ago, when I made a commitment to go to pharmacy school, and to my mom, it was to go and become a medical doctor. And I gotta tell you, she was a little disappointed because she wanted me just to go first pre-med and then straight into medical school. But I had the wisdom, and the angels were watching out for me. And someone
Mhm.
told me, get your pharmacy degree first, and that way you'll have this fallback plan, so that if something happens, you don't score high enough on the MCAT or whatever, you can still make money while you
Yeah.
try. So I got all the way through that program, walked across that stage, and got ready to study for the MCAT exam. And I went rogue, and I said, I'm not doing it. You know, I
Nice.
wanted, yeah, I knew what I wanted to do was
Mm-hmm.
pursue acting, and I love pharmacy. I've been a pharmacist for 31 years, and but I knew really what I wanted to do is what I do today was to help people transform their life using everything that's already shown up in their life, everything that they have today, right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
I didn't know what that was all those 31 years ago, but I knew. I said, yeah, I've kind of gonna have to go off the beat path here and
Mm-hmm.
go rogue, as you say.
Yeah. That's awesome because you probably had some mom and maybe some others going, "Wait a minute. Are you sure this is not what we all agreed on?" Right?
Yes.
We
Oh, my
we
heart
all
was
had a plan for you to go this way.
yeah. And so,
Mhm.
they since came to terms with. I know when my mom, one many years later, she saw me on television for something, and she said, "Okay, I agree. It was a good idea for you not to go to medical school." But that was my really going rogue moment, and it was
Yeah.
difficult because I was so young, and
Mhm.
to change courses right there and in the midstream that summer to say, "No, I'm not going to study for this exam. I'm
Mhm.
going to call it quits here."
Good for you. That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. So, all right, I got off topic there a little bit, but I just felt like that was just a perfect spot for that. Um, okay, so let's talk about helping people with some tools to shift out of that state when just like nothing's working. Okay, I know I'm stressed, I know why I'm stressed, but I just can't seem to change it, to get out of this state. Nothing's working. So rather than having a bottle of wine and and a carton of ice cream, what are some healthy or more positive ways we can help them shift out of that stressful
I
state?
love that example. A bottle of wine and a carton of ice cream. Well,
Right.
so I want to first applaud those of us who are able to really be aware, that
Mhm.
self-aware, that we are stressed, self-aware, and who do the but why questions. Do those the but why?
Mhm.
And can I caution you to be so loving and kind as though you were talking to a child with the but why? Don't be harsh and rush to an answer. But why, and wait. Wait for your true response, not the response that
Mhm.
you would say, not your politically correct response, not your adult response, your true, heartfelt, from the soul response to what is the trigger that's causing you fear. Because the underlying emotion behind stress is fear. So, what is it that you are afraid of? Once you get to that point, and even if you can't get there, still no stress. But I want to give you some answers to some strategies, that is, to help
Yeah.
with those but whys when you get stuck. And that is applying reasonable remedies for what is causing this stress, aka this fear. So
Mhm.
whatever comes up for you, if you listen and you can't get past that point, you say, okay, it's this, and let's just say it's money.
Mhm.
Maybe you are looking for a certain income or a certain bill you need to pay, and you stop right there, and then you apply a reasonable remedy, whatever that is for you. Well, I'm going to cut back on this and I'll pull the money from there. And then you apply that to the stress. Give it to the stress, give it to the fear. Say, here, I heard you. You're
Mhm.
stressed about this, and here is my reasonable remedy. And let me tell you why I think this is a remedy. As though you were talking to someone else, and you
Yeah.
just wait. You wait, because either fear or worry will accept that, and most often it won't. It'll send you back to the drawing board. It'll say, okay, but now we've got it on the run. And every time you go back with a reasonable remedy and it gives you the but, you're getting deeper to the real reason of what is causing you this trigger, this fear, this worry, this stress. And that's really what this whole stress is about. This is a loving way for your body, for your inner self to say, you need to get to know me.
Yeah.
You need to get
Yeah.
to know me, right?
Yeah.
Because the answer here is so beautiful. The answer to what soothes you is in the knowing of you.
Hmm. So there's two things that I love that you just said. That because you're learning the language of your body, you're learning to communicate, you're learning how to listen to it. It's telling you things, but most people haven't learned the language or refuse to listen to it when they do hear it, right? So I think that is so important to foster that communication with your body, number one. And then the reasonable remedy thing, I think, is so key because it actually it requires you to use some logic, use some reason. So really, with that, you can take the emotion out of it. You don't have to be emotional about the thing that that's got you all angsty. You,
Oh,
and so you take the emotion out of it, which immediately alleviates stress. You apply some reason and some logic, and you take an action step. And oftentimes, feeling like even if it's just a little tiny step, that particular step, however small it is, makes you feel like you've got a little bit of control, and that's less scary,
right.
right?
And you start to feel this sense of relaxation come over
Mhm.
you. And you haven't necessarily solved the problem because remember,
Right,
this is not necessarily about solving the problem. We all have
right.
had problems that have gotten solved in our life, and doggone it if another problem doesn't come right on the heels of it, right? Right?
Sure,
So
sure.
we know that solving a problem is not the answer for dealing with stress. It's the short term,
Yeah.
appeasement, but it's not the answer. The answer is learning how to be at peace, whole, complete, nothing
Mhm.
missing, nothing broken, totally in every situation, to
Mhm.
feel this wholeness of yourself that I am strong enough, I am present enough to be in this moment and still
Mhm.
be okay.
Mhm. And those things that you just said, those I am statements. I think that people underestimate and sometimes don't even realize those are such powerful affirmations. Uh, and so making sure that whatever you follow up, I am with, is something that is going to feed you in a positive way. Whether it's just a good mindset statement, or if it's spiritual, if you're a spiritual person, but that there's so much power in that.
After I am should be what you want to be. That should be, I am is a statement of intention, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what you want to be. And that would really, when I first, and I talk about this in my book, Freedom is Your Birthright, when
Mhm.
I got on this pathway of knowing how powerful my words were, I honestly had so little conversation. I was like, oh my gosh, can I say that? Can I say that?
Yeah.
And it really helped me now. And I am a big person in calling it as it is. You have
Mhm.
to be self-aware,
Yeah.
but you have to be intelligent in the way that you present yourself to you, because you are the first person that hears every word that
Mm.
comes out of your mouth. You're
Right.
always speaking to self first. So
Yep.
be very mindful of how you use your I am statements. People, oh, I am so sick and tired. Really?
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, you are.
And the universe says, and you shall be.
Exactly. Your wish is my
Right.
command.
As you wish.
It's so true. It really is. I mean, we're laughing about it, but that's because it's so simple and so true. And it's so obvious. And you wish that everyone would be able to be more willing to actually embrace that and try it out and see the effect it has on their life when they turn those statements into something, that they wish to be or become or be feeling.
Right. And I tell people, what do you have to lose? Try it out.
Mhm.
You have nothing to lose by watching the phrase that you put after I am.
Mhm.
Nothing. You already know that you're stressed. You already know that you're worried. You already
Yeah.
know that, your life is moving down a pathway where there's one stressful event after another stressful event. And those really are just events that are occurring in life, right?
Yes.
There is something about our internal processing of those events that makes our blood pressure rise, makes us have insomnia, makes us overeat. There's something about the way we're interpreting it.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
sad. Horrible things have happened, and we want to have a full human experience, experience all of the emotions,
Mhm.
but we
Right.
don't want the emotions to drive us to the point where we're not no longer useful in our own life.
Right. Right. I always say we don't want to be a slave to our emotions.
No, right? Because the emotion is just really the thermometer. It's really telling you, hey, you're either moving in the right direction or you need to change course. That's all the
Mhm.
emotion is supposed to do. It's like walking in a room and the temperature's too hot. Okay, we need an
Mhm.
adjustment. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah. It's a great way to put it. That's a great way to put it. So I wanted to ask you, as long as we are kind of combining this topic a little bit of stress and health, because they are they're related clearly. So, what are your thoughts about um, all all forms of illness, disease really begins all sickness begins in the mind. I mean, I know that you are, unity is a new thought type of spirituality. I've been a student of new thought for 35 years. And so, all of the books that I've read, from divine science to religious science to A Course in Miracles, they all, and then of course, even now, like quantum physics and the energy and science, it all points to the power of our mind and where much of this stems from, much illness and ill harmony in the body. What are your thoughts about that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, everything that, and of course, we're not talking about religion, but I do want to say this. And the word of God says we will speak no idle word, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we create a whole world in our mind. That's how
Mm-hmm.
magical we are as beings. We create a whole world about everything in our mind, and it out pictures it in our external world. That's what
Yeah.
we do. And I give this example to every client that I work with. I said, so just to make you understand how real that is, you have a thought in a non-physical world, right? A thought is something that we cannot put our hands on, we can't see it. But then you have the ability to take that thought and produce it in the physical world just by writing it down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There is no other form of creation that we know of that can do that. We have a thought, we take something from a non-physical world and we produce it in a physical world. That
Right.
is the same way with everything. Right?
Right.
We first, and the body does not lie. So if we are holding, we're talking about stress today, we're holding in stress and we're
Mm-hmm.
holding all of this in and we're taking it in and we're letting it poison us, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then it produces it bears the fruit of poison,
Yes.
right?
Exactly. And so it just makes me wonder if all of what's going on now, not that there's not a very real thing out there, but also how much of a role has people's fear and stress and mindset, not to mention, their individual states of health. How much has that played a role in the spread of this? I don't know. I'm just saying it's food.
Right.
You got to think about it, to consider it, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure there are people out there that are much smarter than me who are studying that kind of stuff. But I have to say, when we collectively get together,
Yeah.
collectively as we do, and we accept something as being horrible, well, that's a lot of energy on the creation of something, right?
Right.
That's a lot of belief pattern moving in that direction. And I'm happy to say that there are more, my mom introduced us to New Thought way back when, and I'm happy to see that it's become almost mainstream now. Call
Right.
it mindfulness or whatever we want to call it, but this understanding that we create our external world from our internal being, right? And
Hmm.
so the mind is such a powerful tool, and we can change at any time. It's
Right.
so amazing.
Yeah. Well said. I love that. So, okay, we all have the freedom to make new choices about the way we're going to think about COVID, about our health, about stress, about all of these things. Um, we can think about it in healthier ways, in less negative ways, and I guess it really boils down to becoming aware, as you pointed out so many times, your awareness of what your choices are and then opting to exercise them. So taking a little action on those choices. And that is going to just bring me real quick to your book, Freedom is Your Birthright. So let's just touch, at least for a minute or two, on this delightful little book and tell me what inspired you to write it.
Oh my goodness. I never set out to write a book, actually. I was going through a very tough time in my life after being married for 20 years and realized that my marriage was having huge problems in it. I got diagnosed with an
Mm.
autoimmune disease and I lost my job all in the same year.
Oh,
Right.
ouch.
So,
Ouch.
right. And so that was an incredible year for me. And I realized, though I was going through a lot of change, all of it
Hmm.
seemed and felt painful. And one day I was in so much physical pain. I was lying on my kitchen floor because it was cool. And I was trying to imagine the kitchen floor is cool, but it was cool down there. And I was trying to prepare dinner and I didn't have the strength to stand up long enough. And I thought to myself, as horrible as I felt in that moment, we in everyday peace, we look at three pillars: health, wealth, and relationship.
Mhm.
And my health had been impacted, my relationship had been impacted, and my wealth had been impacted. And yet my stress, and I had stress, I had worry, but I was there and I felt so hopeful. I remember lying on the kitchen floor and being so grateful that the floor was cool. I said, oh my gosh, this feels so good against my skin. Now, I could have been there and saying to myself, oh, woe is me. I don't
Yep.
have the strength to stand up and prepare dinner.
Yeah.
In that moment, I thought to myself, I want to be able to give this to someone, because somewhere on this vast planet, there is another person whose health, wealth, and relationship
Yeah.
have been challenged in this very moment, and they feel like they're going to lose their mind. And that's why I said I want to make it small and brief, because I wanted to be under 100 pages, the book, because I felt
Mhm.
like this person doesn't have a lot of time and they don't need a lot of
Right.
fluff. Right?
Right. Just get to the point.
Get to the point. How can you help me? And that's
Yeah.
what I want to realize, people to realize, is that we are free to make any decision about this situation that we want to make. Acknowledge, yes, it hurts. Yes, it's painful.
Mhm.
Yes,
Mhm.
I'm scared. Right? But I have decided that it is here. I wouldn't have chosen it, but it is here. I accept that it is here. I honor myself for being aware and accepting. And now I can wait for the creative answer to all of this.
So that's going to also require some faith, right, on the behalf of the sufferer that something good can and will come of this.
And all you need to do is know somebody else's story, right?
Mhm.
Know somebody. I knew I wasn't the first woman after 20 years, right? I was not the first wife after 20 years to
Yeah.
realize, oh my gosh, I was not the first person to go to the doctor feeling like this is going to be something minor, to turn around and say, oh my goodness, is that right? I wasn't the
Mm.
first person that happened.
Mhm.
I wasn't
Right.
the first person to ever lose a job. Right? There have been people who have done that and had overcome. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah. Why can't I? That's exactly it. That's exactly it. When you think about the billions upon billions upon billions of humans that have walked the earth, surely there is at least one that's been in your shoes or worse that has come through the fire, overcome, and become stronger and wiser and able to help and be of service to others because of it.
Absolutely. At some point during the journey when things were getting really bad, I said, well, if I need to be the first to have all three worlds collapse at one time, who comes out like a shining star, then I'm happy to be the first.
Yeah.
Right? Your self-talk is so important, and it must be disciplined. You will
Mhm.
not feel like it on the days that you do not feel like it, on the
Mhm.
days when all it seems to do is rain, but you must have a process. One of my very first things in the morning is to write an active gratitude card. I
Mhm.
put on one side three things that I'm grateful for that happened yesterday. And at that point in my life in 2015, I was struggling looking for three things. On my list one day, I had, I'm grateful that I'm able to blink.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was digging deep, right? And then on
Yeah.
the other side of that card, I put my intention, three things that I'm going to be grateful for that I am setting an intention that will happen today. And they were
Mhm.
small things. I'm going to get through the next 5 minutes without crying. Yes, I am. Right. They were
Right.
small things, but I would put them on, and that is a part of my everyday process.
Yeah.
Whether I feel like it, whether I'm running late, it doesn't matter. You have to have these disciplined things of checking in with yourself, asking yourself, how are you today?
Mhm.
And waiting for the real answer without judgment, shame, or condemnation. I accept
Right.
that that's how I am. I honor myself for telling myself the truth.
I love that. And what you said about that is literally mindset training. You are practicing, you are exercising the way you are going to allow your mind to think and operate about something so that you don't corkscrew yourself into the dirt. So it's like you said, when you were laying on the floor in your kitchen, and what did you do? You went to I'm so grateful. This floor feels so nice and cool. You immediately, or maybe not so immediately, but you pretty quickly found something that was good in this devastation, place you found yourself in,
Right. And
right?
we all do that. We should do that. Look for something to be grateful for. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. I said to myself at first, are you too weak to even stand and cook dinner? And I thought, and immediately after that, just from disciplining myself, the next thought was, boy, does this floor feel good.
Mm-hmm. I love that, and I think that that is so important because it's really that's when the practice matters the most. It's easy, as you said, to have positive self-talk when things are all rosy and going great, but when the shift hits the fan,
Right. I love it.
right? That's when, you're put to the test of how much have you been really practicing and absorbing, and how strong is that mental musculature now to do the kind of self-talk that you really need right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I just want to say, do not underestimate the good of putting yourself in a timeout will do.
Mhm.
Like, take if you need to put yourself in a voluntary timeout, and that means timeout for everything, timeout for negative self-talk, timeout for the cell phone, lights out, you in the darkness sitting there, and refuse to let your mind abuse you. You sit there and you tell your mind, I'm going to close my eyes and I want you to go look for light in the darkness. It'll occupy your mind and let your
Mhm.
mind rest.
Yeah.
Right, a
Yep.
voluntary timeout, do, oh my goodness, it will do wonders.
It really does. It is a beautiful way to, again, change your state. And that's really what you're trying to do. You need to shift out of that state. And there are just 1,000 positive ways to do it. And
Yes.
that is one beautiful way. I have so many other things I want to ask you. So you're going to have to come back because I'm watching the time, and I know you're a busy lady. So where I'm going to ask you one more question, but before I do, I'd like you to share real quick, where can people find out more about you, what you do? Where's the best place to send them?
Yes, so my website, which I'm so proud of, we just launched a brand new website, www.doctor, that's Dr. Dravon, Drav for victory, James.com. So we just did away with the old website, got a new website. And then, of course, I'm on the radio weekly, a live podcast
Mhm.
called Dr. Dravon James and Everyday Peace. I'm on Unity Online Radio, and you can go back on there and you can listen to all my past shows, but we're live every Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. So I have to ask. I was watching. I can't remember what it was, whose video it was, but I was watching you on something, and you told what I found to be a fascinating story about when you were a kid, and you went to one church on Saturday and a different church on Sunday. That's what your mom did, and I thought that was so interesting that I wanted to just quick ask you about that.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of churching on the
Yeah,
weekend.
it is. And so I would just use this moment to honor my mom, who just recently passed away in January.
Mm.
And so we had a very challenging childhood, but she somehow, this phenomenal woman, would find her way to church and have us in church all day on Saturday. I did not think it was phenomenal when I was a kid.
I bet not.
So we went to a New Thought church, and we were from
Mm.
Chicago, on the south side of Chicago. We went to a New Thought church on Saturday, and it was all day. And so back then they'd have the charts and we do all this studying, and we were small, but I'm my mom's oldest child, and so she would want me to stay awake. And then on Sunday we went to a oh my gosh, holiness church, Pentecostal church. And that
Mm.
is, if you know anything about Pentecostal religion, it was all day on Sunday. And my mom would tell us, now when you get to the New Thought Church, do not mention that we go to a Pentecostal church on Sunday. And
Oh.
Sunday, do not mention that we go to a New Thought church. And I would say to her, Mom, why? She said, because they would never understand. And my
Mhm.
mom was raised Pentecostal. She said they would never understand why I am interested in both. But
Yeah.
in my childlike mind, I would hear such strong similarities. The practice is
Mhm.
totally different, right?
Mhm.
But there
Mhm.
were such strong similarities in the teaching. It was almost the same to me.
Right.
And somewhere, I talk about everything, there's no insignificant moment in our lives. All of that, as I went on, I read Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking.
Hmm.
All of that sort of opened up those floodgates for me to realize that we are all exactly the same at our core, right? We all want to know at the end of the day that we're safe, the people that we love are safe, right? And that was what those practices were teaching in all different ways, right? For us to accept that about ourselves, right? And
Hmm.
so that practice of being in church all day Saturday and all day Sunday, oh my goodness, I would love to say that I went willingly, but there were so many but whys.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
But here you are, putting it to just a beautiful use, and it's become, it's a massive, obviously massive part of your life. I think it's wonderful. I was just so curious about that, because we went to Unity Church a little bit. My mom was into New Thought, of course, back in the '70s. So all of that stuff, my sister and I were exposed to when we were teenagers, and so that's just the path that we went, and it seems to be a wonderful fit. So I thought that was so curious, that you were exposed to both
Yeah.
processes, I guess, of cultivating a relationship with God. And I just thought, how did you end up choosing, a path? And I think, like what you said, though, if you look beyond the languaging, the messages, the core messages are not all that different.
Not at all. And I think it's for me has helped me to accept all people from all walks.
Hmm.
People who say, I believe in nothing. That's fine too, right?
Yeah.
People, believe in self. That's great. You know, so it helped me to see that humanness in all of us,
Mm-hmm.
that here we had in my mom's mind, they were so different. So, their beliefs were so different. And I agree, the way they presented their beliefs was totally different, but the core belief was the
Right.
same. They just used
Right.
different terminology.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I hate to, but I know I have to let you go. So, is there any final message that you would like to share with our listeners before we sign
Oh,
off?
yes, there is. For everyone who's watching, I want you to know that right now, in this very moment, you have everything that you need to move to your next level of greatness. There is no external source that you need. You can reach out for help, but know that you have all the tools, you have them right now. So if you're ready and courageous enough to ask yourself, I wonder what if, go ahead and ask the question, wait for your answer.
Perfect. You are delightful. I am so grateful that you spent this time with us today. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Dr. Dravon James. It's been a
thank you for having
pleasure.
me. It's been a pleasure
Absolutely.
as well.
Absolutely. So, that's going to do it for us today, everyone. Thank you all for spending time with me and Dr. Dravon James. We hope that through our conversation, you've picked up on some ways to maybe change your perception and free yourself at least a little bit from some undue stress, unnecessary stress. If you can relieve yourself of even a little bit, by practicing some of the tips that Dr. Drayvon gave us, I think that you will be surprised at what you find out is possible for yourself. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. Share all of the good shift that we have been talking about here. And hey, take a moment to give us a 5-star rating. That would mean a lot to us. Until next week, stay feisty, my friends. Stay healthy and stay open. And go make some epic shift happen in your lives. And that goes for you too, Mr. Gary V.